very good evening to one and all. Center of Excellence in Safety Engineering and Analytics, CoE-SEA, wholeheartedly welcomes all our participants to week 53 of the Weekend Talk on Safety Engineering Management and Analytics. The event is conducted under Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, which commemorates 75 years of India's independence. And today, this week is very special as we are completing 1 year of our weekend talk on safety, engineering, management, and analytics. We thank each and every of our participants for your kind support and cooperation. We begin today with this beautiful sloka, Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityoma Amritam Kamaya. Praying to Almighty to lead us from ignorance to truth, from darkness to light, and from death to immortality. Now let me welcome our dignitaries onto the virtual dais. We have Professor J. Maiti, the chairman of the center, Professor O.B. Krishna, who is the convener of the event, and our expert speaker for the day, Mr. Suresh Tanwar. He is with British Safety Council as the head of Audit and Consultancy India. He is responsible for smooth deliveries at client's end on health and safety audits, trainings and consultancies through BCS Associates, ensuring quality assurance of the deliveries. He plays an active role in creating new products and services interfacing with the BCS UK technical team. Prior to joining BCS, he was the chief group safety and health with Tata Group. He is a mechanical engineer and a qualified safety professional and has had a career stint in both large industrial conglomerates and leading multinational corporates, which includes heading the health and safety in Tata Motors, Tata Chemicals, Johnson & Johnson, Castrol, British Petroleum, and Esser Steel. He has conceptualized and implemented innovative best practices in safety and health in all his roles. In Tata Group, he was steering and leading efforts across the Tata Group companies in the journey of safety excellence by enhancing safety performance and developing positive safety culture through strategic and alignment initiatives. He has received ASSP, American Society of Safety Professionals, President's Award in the year 2006 in Atlanta, USA, for recognition of his efforts in enhancing safety in Indian corporates. He has widely traveled overseas professionally and presented papers, imparted safety training, and led or facilitated safety audits in the companies that he has worked for. He has been a frequent speaker on health and safety and has been a member and moderator of the panel discussion in national and international conferences on health and safety. CoE-SEA wholeheartedly welcome you to this event, sir. We are very privileged to attend to. Now I kindly request Professor Krishna to kindly welcome our expert speaker. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Sven. See, you covered mostly Suresh's profile, but let me give you some. He's a good friend of mine. Over a decade, we are in touch. We used to meet in the international conferences, meet in India. We were consistent touch with both of us. We know he's in Tata Group for many years, so doing great job. Suresh's contribution is great for Tata Group, I know. Tata Chemicals, Tata Motors, Tata Group, all together. We get many practitioners, but this specialist practitioner has got huge experience in different fields: chemicals, petroleum, steel, Johnson and Johnson, different integrated organizations. So then he has pick up a great knowledge, understood the issues of the industries. That's why he had chosen the topic of how to prevent reoccurrence. The recurrence of incidents is one of the biggest issue of any organization. If it is a very good organization, I keep telling, if an incident happens, if you stop happening for the next 20 years, I treat this as a very good organization. But it doesn't happen. Even the organization like DuPont, which is world class, recurrence keep happening because there are many issues in this. Today, Suresh must be covering some of the aspects which will be very useful to academicians as well as practitioners. And the scholars like you, Sven, you can pick up the topics from what he is speaking, and you can do research, R&D on that, and develop different models. So I hand over the mic to Mr. Suresh Tanwar, and I am also very eagerly waiting for to know the things which he will share. Suresh, this is to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Obi Krishna, and it's a pleasure to be here. And thank you for sort of getting in touch with me, for my willingness to do this webinar. I am actually honored, and I take this as a privilege to sort of do this. And also, I'm thankful to Sovik and Sven, for coordinating this entire thing at the back end. So I look forward, at the end, if there are any questions and all that from your side. But I'll, as we go through the presentation, I think some things will get clearer. So let me share my screen with you. Okay. So, the whole idea of this session is not so much about the prevention of occurrence of incidents, because first time always it can occur in any organization. And then there is an experiential learning and all that. And the organization learns and then it tries to prevent. But the problem is actually they're not able to prevent, and there is a recurrence of incidents that keep happening. If somebody has fallen from height, in one site itself, you're talking about, not even across different businesses or different sites. Again, after 6 months, somebody falls from height, and there's probably another fatality that takes place and all of that. So it's an issue. And it's when I was in BP, and they had quite a bit strong systems and all that. I remember there also when we were talking to the group health and safety, was a global large organization, like $320 billion kind of organization. And I had an opportunity to meet him in London, and he also said the same thing, that we are struggling with the recurrence of incidents. We don't seem to be learning from incidents. So that's the issue. And then I thought, and with my experience and all that, I put this presentation together as to what are those things that we can actually put together to actually get some confidence. Now, you cannot give a guarantee, of course, to prevent recurrence of incidents, but you can have a higher level of confidence in terms of prevention of recurrence of incidents, as the whole talk is all about that. So the flow of presentation is, I'll be briefly talking about the accident causation model, because you need to understand that what causes that. A little bit on safety and the individual, what the individual role plays a role in that particular incident prevention. Safety pyramid, I'm not sure whether how many of you are aware that this pyramid is being critiqued for quite some time now. DECRA is an organization which is a world-renowned, safety consultancy organization. In fact, they have consulted with DuPont as well. Now, DuPont is a consultant, but they have consulted with DuPont in the sense that DuPont has taken the services of DECRA in some way a few years ago. So they also say that the pyramid is actually, there's a it's a different pyramid, and it's high time that we look at Henry's triangle and all with a different view altogether. Not that it is rubbish. No, I'm not saying that at all. But there is a different view and perspective around it. I'll be then talking about the ineffective investigation, inadequate root causes and all that keep causing repeat incidents. And then, of course, why do the incidents reoccur? And then what are the ways and means? What is the, how can we sort of put a stop to that? How can we arrest that trend and, and come back to a place wherein we don't have repeat of incident, onslaught of incidents off and on again and again. So one serious incident itself is too much for an organization, isn't it? And but when the same thing happens again, well, that's very bad. And I would actually like to reverse the words here. That's very bad, and that's something which is not tolerable. What does it reflect ultimately? At the end of the day, it reflects ineffectiveness, which is creeping in the various stages of the operations. And of course, it is also a manifestation of the existing investigation process, which is seeming to be not very effective, and its robustness can be questioned. So that's what I look at it, from the repeat of serious incidents. Let's have a look at this, accident causation models and all that. But before that, I just wanted to sort of put some perspectives around the incidents and all the serious incidents. So one of the things is that senior management sometimes give conflicting messages. The tone and tenor sometimes is different. For example, if somebody says, I want this job to be done safely, but by Friday. That's one way of saying thing. And the other fellow says, the other leader says, I want this job to be done by Friday, but safely. So that's the message that should be given. If the message is, in a lower tone safely and on a higher tone Friday, then obviously you're giving a conflicting message. And then that message itself can become a root cause of a serious incident. Not reporting of incidents, inadequate investigation, of course, are one of the precursors and all that. Pressing for early investigation by senior leaders. And I've seen this in various organizations that we consult with. We have a lot many, clients, big clients also. And then one of the things that we find is they say that, and even in the organizations that I've worked, whether it is a SAR Steel and the organizations that I've worked, senior leaders would say, well, it's unfortunate we have had a fatality. We want the investigation to be done and report to be on the table in 5 days or 7 days. Now, that's not all right. That's not a good messaging by the senior leader itself. Because what will happen then is that the team will compromise on the investigation. The quality of investigation will get suffered. Evidences would not have been collected in the way they should have been. And of course, the other things like postmortem and all, also report would not have come by that time. Sometimes they share the postmortem report, and that also gives some kind of evidence as to how this incident happened. So all of that. So how can you ever do an incident investigation and that too of a fatality or a serious incident hypo in 5-6 days? So you got to push back and say, boss, it takes about 25 to 30 days for this incident. And we need to have at least the safety practitioners need to have that kind of a guts to say that, it requires time, sir, and just give us a little time. We'll come out with a quality investigation. The other aspect is designing out risks and redesign task or equipment which is not considered and all that. And one thing that I find very, very common, even now when we do a 5-star audit also and incident investigation, one of the very big element there, we find that blaming the individual, the person who's gone from the world and he's blamed, he shouldn't have gone there, he was complacent, all those kind of things. No, why did you go there? Why did you go there is something not being looked into. And, it is like blaming the person who's actually the victim, which is again not the right thing. Management failure, leadership failure, all that is not looked into as to why did the person go there in the first place. So focus on lost time in frequency rate instead of severity rate for high risk industries, especially. I've seen that in high risk industries, metal industries, and all that. Some companies talk about frequency rate, whereas the issue is the severity rate. Person who has been away from work for 20 days, 30 days, 2 months, 6 months, and all that. So what is the point in talking about frequency rate as against severity rate? Now, BP did the same mistake when the Texas disaster happened and I come to this time and again because I was there in BP in Castrol, India, as HSC head for India way back in 2004 to 7. So when when they say that they always said our lost time injury frequency rate is very good and all that. And they had Texas disaster, which was a process safety related disaster, and then they had 16 people who died, 100 of them injured. And what were they looking at? Frequency rate. So also I keep telling the organizations here when we consult with them that look at the severity rate, because your organization is not in kind of an injury organization. There will be a lot of hand injuries and all that, 15 hand injuries, some nicks and cuts, and then therefore there will be a one kind of a fatality once in 5 years or so. In a high risk industry, severity rate is something that we need to be monitored, and that's very important. Aggressive cost cutting comes, especially in the times of sector downturn, which actually results in serious injuries and fatalities, of course, and senior management failure to listen to the voice of safety professionals and also the workforce. If they don't listen to that, that again becomes one of the things that, sir, ye to bataya tha, lekin, but again, you put a deaf ear to it or whatever it is. Passage of time blurs the memory, and, the senior leaders will again sort of get up and see this as a very important issue on the day of the fatality, within a week, 10 days, 15 days, till the next board meeting. After that, it goes silent, it goes in the background, other priorities take over, quality takes over, of course, cost take over, and all those other things take over, which become the business priorities. So therefore, it actually takes a back seat. So which again is like, It's a knee-jerk reaction. Fatality ho gaya, so what should we do? Oh, let's get the best people in the world. We look for the best consultants in the world and all that. But they don't look at that you have a role to play in terms of not letting it getting blurred. Keep it alive. And that doesn't happen. So connection between well-being and accidents, that's not understood. A person who is having stress is more prone to incidents. A person who's fatigued is more prone to incidents. So these are the things we don't even look at. You will never find in incident investigation these kind of things that are coming out. So these are some of the perspectives I wanted to say, which are related to serious injuries and fatalities. Now, this is a kind of a very simple accident causation model. There is a person's got a job to do, he's working in an organization, so there's an interplay between all of that. There are human failures that happen, which are quite active, but there are latent errors also, which are hidden errors, which we don't understand that. All put together creates an unsafe acting condition, unsafe plant condition and all of that, and incident occurs. If you are failed to recover, I'll be talking about it later on, then actually it's a bodily injury and all that, and it's an accident. Otherwise, it remains an incident so far, which is a failure to mitigation kind of a manifestation that happens. There's another model, which is the Swiss cheese model, and I've been sort of talking about it in many of my training programs and various other contacts that I've been sort of doing with different sort of clients and all that. This is, hazard exists everywhere. Hazard is there on top of my head now. There's a fan. That's a hazard. Now, the possibility of that fan falling on my head is there. Very much. It is there. It can fall. It probably will never fall in 1 or 2 years. But if I don't even have a look at it, if there is a sharing of the nut bolt that is taking place and all that, after 8-10 years, it probably can fall. And it has happened in companies, in canteens and all, fans have fallen. May not have fallen on the head, but they've definitely fallen, when people are a little away or whatever it is. So from the hazards to convert into incidents, we put in control measures. So there's a person behavior, there's training, there's auditing, there's risk assessment, all of that. And if we put control measures, but the control measure have weaknesses. So these are the weaknesses. The holes are what? Nothing but the weaknesses. So when these weaknesses combine, you have an accident at hand. And if the weaknesses combine in a smaller way, probably it's an EMS. It can be a high potential EMS and all of that. This is one way to look at it. Let's have a look. So these are latent and conditions and active failures. Let's have a look at the real life situation, which is about driving. So the person is driving. It's a safe traffic condition so far. High volume traffic. Later on starts building, but the vehicle is safe. The vehicle overall is safe, but it's got a ball tire, so it's a low tire tread. Safe condition of road, but it starts raining later on. And then the driver is trained in DDT, defensive driving training, and all of that. But he uses hands-free phone conversation. So that's the mistake that is made at the last. But there are mistakes there as well. There are no mistakes, there are weaknesses. So these are the weaknesses. When all these weaknesses combine, you have accident at hand. And what do? What we say is, this person was using hand-free conversation, that's why he met with an accident. But what about all this? What about the management factors? What about the risk assessment? What about the training? What about the auditing? All of that we don't tend to look into, and that's the point that I'm trying to say. Let's have a look at it another way. The hazards are all around us. So there is, again, I'm saying organizational barriers, leadership, supervision, audit tools, risk assessment, safe behavior. During we do a lot of promotion of safety during safety week, all of that put together. So we try to put barriers, but barriers are put by whom? People have what? Weaknesses. So there are weaknesses around. So when these weaknesses combine, a lot of weaknesses, when they combine, we have an incident. However, if our emergency control, emergency response is very strong, and I call it a last strong door, then if that last strong door is very strong, then we are able to avert that incident from actually converting into a serious incident, fatality, or things like that. An example is, if there is a person again falling from height, it is picked up like a sack of rice, put in a vehicle which is let's say like a jeep, taken to a hospital which is about 2 hours away, he is going to die. Chances are that he'll actually not survive. On the other hand, if the emergency response is very strong, the ambulance comes within 5 minutes on the site, he's taken in the ambulance and he's lifted properly, by the way, put in a stretcher by the first aiders, and he's taken in ambulance and he's taken to the hospital, which is just about 20 minutes away, which the company has a tie-up. We are able to save the life of the person. It doesn't turn into a fatality. So it's a very important point. So while there can be weaknesses in your audit system, in your risk assessment, in your various other things, but if you focus on the emergency response to be very strong with very less holes, very less weaknesses, then you're able to actually avert a serious incident from happening. So I thought this is a very important slide to understand. Let's come to this. I talked about very briefly in my opening sort of comment that there is a traditional safety pyramid. Now this is a traditional safety pyramid. This is Frank Bird. Frank Bird came in 70s from insurance background. Henrich also came in 40s, 30s rather, insurance background again. Henrich talked about 329, 300 near misses, all those things, 29 minor injuries, and one sort of fatality. And this gentleman, Frank Bird, talked about 24 unsafe behaviors, 600, 30, 10, and finally one fatality. Ultimately, it is same. It's a broad-based triangle. But what's happening now? The research is saying what? The research is saying that the triangle is still there. The triangle is still there, but the triangle is constricted. So you get very less chances. You get very less opportunities for it to convert, to sort of make things all right here and prevent it from happening to, converting into a serious incident. A fall from height, 99% is fatal. Normally don't survive, and depends on the height also. Even people who are having fallen from 6 feet height have died. So it's normally fatal. So that's what it is. So therefore, in the construction industry and process industries, this broad-based triangle doesn't work. And we shouldn't be preaching so much about it. We have been taught this. I mean, I did safety course way back in 96, and we've been taught and drilled. But it's time to understand it in its correct perspective. It still holds true. For what? For engineering kind of industry and all that. For a lot of hand injuries and this and that and those kind of things. It certainly doesn't hold true. If there is one process incident, we know Bhopal disaster. And what kind of, how many people died there? 2,500 within a week and 22,000 over a period of decades. So that's the kind of scenario. So this is another point that I wanted to say. The other point is that the factors that cause low severity incident, the factors that cause minor injuries are very different. The causes of minor injuries are very different. The causes of serious injuries and fatalities. That's where this triangle comes from. And this TECRA has been professing it for the last few years. This is the sort of pyramid that the process industries and the construction industries must look at. Now, I'm not saying that what is the figure here and all that, but I'm just saying it graphically that it's not a broad-based triangle, but it's a constricted triangle. That's the point I'm trying to make. So learning from incidents, if the incident is there, many organizations reporting is an issue. And I say reporting actually is an ethical issue. By the way, it actually goes outside the purview of safety as well. Anyway, if reporting is an issue, if reporting is not there, investigation will not happen. If investigation will not happen, correction will not be there. Correction will not be there. There will be no learning, and there will be no learning. There will be no sharing, and incidents will keep happening again. So these are the steps. So this itself is a very important step. Reporting for an organization which has just started its safety journey, this itself is an issue, right? Let me talk about now a little bit of a 5i. We use 5i and all that, and there are pitfalls of 5i if you don't use it properly. And there's a closed loop of 5i, and I'm just going to explain it through my next slide. We know that is 5i. Now 5i is actually never 5i. It's most of the time it is 5i, of course, but it also can be 4y. It also can be 6y. In a very rare case, it can be 7y also, but on an average it is 5, so let's call it 5y. Y endless is a 5y. Let's see now, a person who's got an injury, eye injury because not wearing PPE. So what is the cause? Why? Because he didn't know it was required. But why didn't he know it was not required? Because safe work practice was not available. But why the hell safe work practice was not available? Because there's no safe work practice that is written down. There's no document around it. There's nothing written down. But why it is not written down? Because the hazard is not recognized. But why is hazard not recognized? Because risk assessment process, which is the cornerstone of safety, which is the bedrock of safety, which is the heart of safety, itself is very weak. Therefore, all this leads into that injury. Now, closing the loop. So therefore, if risk assessment process is weak, then what do? You strengthen the process. Now, how do you strengthen the process? You identify the hazard. When you identify the hazard, you have to write the safety work practices. When you do that, you deploy the safety work practice. And then finally, you ask the person to wear PPE. Now, if you don't use all these steps, these closed loops, person gets injury, give him the safety glasses. 1 month down the line again, in some industry also had, and I don't want to name it, There are a lot of eye injuries. So therefore, keep giving the safety glass and, so that person doesn't get injury again. But somebody else will get that injury. So therefore, repeat. 10, 20, 30 cases can happen. However, if you go through this route, then you are able to actually stop the recurrence of the eye injury. I won't say 100%, but at least it'll be a confidence of 90, 95%. But not, you're not aware when the next eye injury is going to happen because of dust or because of this or because of that or whatever it is. Okay. Safety and the individual. Just wanted to talk about this also a little bit. Safety and the individual. Safety, sometimes individual is seen as a problem in action scenario. Okay, I told you in the beginning that that person should not have gone there. I mean, I've seen in umpteen investigation, he should not have gone there and he went there. But why did he go there? You don't see that part at all. Anyway, that is one thing. But at the other times, the individual is seen as the only guarantee of safety. Let's say when we're talking about the Swiss cheese model, everything is weak. Risk assessment is weak, management commitment is weak, procedures are weak, training is weak, everything is weak. But the person is actually safety conscious, then actually he can make a difference. And that is the point I was trying to say. So let's have a look at this, some of the things. On the other hand, if the state of health, fatigue, stress, and other factors are there, that could be an issue. Eyes and mind on not task can be an issue. Imbibing of toolbox talk, which is a very, very ritual thing. And I always say that it's got to be hazard-based, hazard risk-based and all that, whatever the work is being carried out. Or you call it last-minute risk assessment, or you call it final checks and discussion, which I normally now call. And again, changing the sort of, the title of toolbox talk, which has become very, very mundane. It doesn't give any value. When we have consulted with some of the clients, we say that you call it final checks and discussion, and you do everything in that, in the sense that you check the, the procedure is available, you check the risk assessment is there, you check the permit is in proper order, you check the persons are not in the state of bad health, stress is not there, this is not there, you check the overall environment, 360 degree, and you check also if there is a previous incident that has taken place and have a discussion around it, and then conduct the, and then sort of start the job. That is the toolbox talk, not giving a very, very, a very generic talk. Safety is important to us, and this is the PP required. Of course, PP is also one of the things that I wanted to mention in that final checks and discussion. And that's where you sort of, the toolbox talk do not help. And toolbox talks is very much like emergency response. When I mentioned, it is the last leg of communication. If that itself is weak, then obviously then we are actually vulnerable to incidents. The person should be in line of fire. Person should not be complacent. Cognitive dissonance should not be there. I don't know whether you understand this term. This is a psychological aspect of safety, which is a person. Every person has belief. A belief wherein two counter beliefs are there in the mind. To do this, which is undesirable, or not to do this and to do the right thing, which is desirable. For example, to wear a safety helmet, person may not want to wear it because it's a little uncomfortable, you get sweat and this and that. On the other hand, this is a safety requirement, it is for my own safety, the company expects me to wear it. So what are those triggers by which a person changes into desirable behavior and actually discuss the undesirable behavior is a cognitive dissonance, and that becomes a part of behavioral safety and all that if you go into the details, and behavioral issue, risk-taking behavior of youngsters. So that's young people like to take risk and all that, and we find in many industries both at the end of age spectrum. Youngsters get hurt because they tend to take risk, and the elderly people also get hurt because the response time to in the line of fire is not as strong, and they can sort of become victim. Let me give an example. There was Tata Coffee, which is into plantation of coffee, tea, and all that, and they also have a plant where they sort of do all refining and all those kind of things. Now, what happened is a crow came and they were having lunch. 5-6 workmen were having lunch, and a crow came and hit the chaja of this bee, honey bee. And then all the bees sort of, as you know, if you disturb them, they got all wild. They started attacking people. All the youngsters ran, and they, with 5-6 of bite injuries, they survived. But the person who was like 62 years old, his response time was less. He had 100 bites, and he eventually died. The actually take risk-taking behavior, and the elderly actually are not able to respond in a timely manner, and they also become victims. Okay. This is the zone that I was talking about here. There is a danger zone. Let's say there's a moving machinery, which is unguarded. Let's say this, an example. This is a totally safe area. This is a defined operational, this is a navigated path where a person can come. But if he comes here, it becomes a little closer. So detect if you're approaching danger or if the danger is approaching you, diagnose and act to correct. This is a defined operational boundary. But if you come here, limits of controllable area, then you come up to this area. And then you have to take precautions as to what you need to do. So you're not coming to line of fire. The danger is not approaching you, and you're not approaching danger. So it's kind of a safety envelope. And we need to have a safety envelope kind of a thing, which is it's kind of an imaginary thing. Now, it's not necessary it is in this form and shape, but it gives an idea that in order to go to a danger zone, there is a zone which is a safe zone, and then there are various other zones which you need to be aware of, where you can navigate safely and where you have to actually now stand and see that you are actually close to the area where you're vulnerable and you can meet with an accident. So that's called the safety envelope. It's a metaphor model. Safety envelope is something that is there. Now let's come to the antecedents of accidents, recurrence, and why do accidents recur. So this is a scene that I have seen actually during the last 15, 20 years in my working life, that I was working with various companies, people lying under the truck. Do they want to get killed? Answer is clearly no. Well, what is the issue? The issue is that the risk perception is low. Issue is that the person at the lower in the hierarchy of society, risk perception is low. People in the higher hierarchy of the society, risk perception is high. It's not being risk averse and all that. It's not being that. It's a risk perception. They don't perceive that risk. That the driver will come, all of us. Whether people have been able to percolate it downwards or not, nobody looks at that. So therefore it is kind of a tick box exercise. That's a learning has happened. Actually, what is the learning happened? Absolutely nothing. It's only with one person. Is not even passed on it to the entire team there. The other is poor investigations, and poor investigations, in-depth investigation not done. Methodology probably was inappropriate for a process-related industry. I think fishbone diagram probably is not appropriate. What needs to be done is an appropriate one, which probably is a fault tree analysis. Right. So team formation is not correct. So if it is a fire incident, fire person is not there. If it's an electrical incident, electrical person is not there. So obviously the team formation, you don't have the specialist in the team. The same department and interested party is doing the investigation. So then they have that interest at the back of their mind. So even if they don't have, unconscious bias can set in, and the investigation will not be to the level that it is desired. And because of unconscious bias, the outcome will be slightly different. Failure to go to the root cause. When we talk about human factors, we only look at direct human factors. And as I said in the beginning also, we don't look at the stress factors, the fatigue factors, and all of that. Whereas we look at, person should have been careful, or person should have been not complacent, he should not have gone into that area, and those kind of things. Conflicting messages, safety culture issues are never identified as root causes. When that BP disaster happened, safety culture was the main thing that was coming out. Now, the safety culture of BP as an organization was not bad, but safety culture of that site was not very good. There's a risk-taking behavior in Texas, we know that, and therefore, where does BP sit in that? It sits in that city, Texas City. So therefore, that culture actually was not good enough, and that culture came out as one of the points as one of the root causes. But it never comes out in our investigation report because probably we are scared. But what is the senior management thing? Because culture gets driven from them. Senior management drives the culture ultimately at the end of the day. Recommendations are not actionable. Maybe the recommendation, the risk assessment should, organize some training for risk assessment, but for whom? And what kind of training? A full day training or a half day training, or what kind of risk assessment and for whom? all that is not very clear. So if the recommendation is not actionable or doable, that itself is an issue where actions keep occurring again. The other, again, why do they occur? The rigorous in closing of recommendation, poor prioritization of recommendation is there, in the sense that if an organization says that we have done 9 out of 10, so we are 90% recommendations complied already within 3 months, but there is one recommendation that they're not looking at, and which is the most critical, which can again cause accident to recur. And they're not looking at that. So therefore, that prioritizing is not there by the management. Organization memory is very short-lived. Specific people leave, and when they leave, the learners go with them. And then when new people come in, they probably are not aware about it and all that. And then the learnings go with them. So all that happens. Experience and documentation weakness is also there. Experience and skills are lost as company cut number of permanent employees to save cost. And that's again all of a sudden the contractors are brought in. The contractors don't have a proper induction and all that. New heads and leaders, when they come to the organization, they've got different priorities. They don't come with the background of serious incident fatalities and all. Probably they might not come from the high risk industry. So therefore their focus is very different. And that also is one of the things that actually keeps recurring. Change of design that can lead to fatal incidents, and that is the management of change, which is not very strong. A formal management of change process doesn't take place. It is not supplemented by the risk assessment, appropriate risk assessment, depending on what kind of risk assessment is sort of to be done. Here probably is not sufficient. We have got to do hazard study for a chemical related industry, for example. So that's there. Continued. What else goes on? The greater use of contractors. Let me cover this point a little later. I'm coming to the supervisor because the top point has got a relationship with the next slide I'm going to show. The supervisor is overloaded. Supervisors interface between the management and the workforce, and he keeps getting distracted from time to time. And we actually keep diverting his attention, whereas he should be focusing on the workforce that he is actually responsible for. And if he keeps distracting, he doesn't pay attention to his workforce, that itself is actually responsible for series of incidents again and again. Hazards are not reassessed often enough. If there is no incident that has taken place, it looks like, okay, then what was safe in the past is also safe now, but it is not necessary it will be safe now. Now coming to the contractors, they are the people who meet accidents, not the general manager, not met with fatalities. That also happened, by the way, in some of the organizations during the pre-startup safety review and all of that. But 99% of the times, they are the contractor workforce. So they need close supervision. Their risk perception is low. I said just a while back, retention of contractor workmen by contractors is very low. Today is somebody, tomorrow is somebody else, and all that. Today you may be working in a dairy. Tomorrow is coming into a very high hazardous industry plant and all that, toxic chemicals, heavy equipment kind of scenario where it is. So therefore, it doesn't have that kind of background, and induction is not good enough. Hierarchy of needs are different. Food, shelter, and clothing, roti, kapda, makan are not looked into. And what you are trying to do? Safety. You're drilling safety into his head, where his basic safety requirements, not safety, basic physiological requirements may not be met. And of course, there will be a fatigue and boredom because we extract maximum work out of the workmen. They are working for 12, 14 hours a day and all at times on the project sites. So fatigue and boredom also are precursors to incidents, and not only incidents to occur, but reoccur as well. So contractors, now they are at the lower hierarchy in the society. As I said, their physiological needs are very important. As I said, the food, shelter, and clothing, health, food, sleep, payment in time, all these are more important factors to them than the safety, because their perception of safety is low. What do? We hop on safety. You got to do safety. You got to do this. आप काम नहीं कर रहे safety से. आपको कितनी बार बताया? You've been told so many times. So the organizations need to understand and take this factor into consideration. What it is, actually, we are taught in HR meetings and all that, in HR training, Maslow's theory of hierarchy of needs of motivation. Only when this need of motivation is fulfilled, then the need of safety will be fulfilled. What we try to do is jump over. We are jumping the gun and asking the people to do safety without looking into this. There'll be no resting place for people in the project sites. There'll be no proper drinking water. There'll be no proper sanitation. And hopping will be on safety. That's a mistake that we make, and we need to understand this point, and we'll find that improvement taking place when we understand the physiological needs first, and then requirements of the principal company as far as safety is concerned. So what are the avoidance? How can we avoid these recurrences? What are the ways and means? So in safety, the power to remember is vital. As the days pass, it becomes a blurring kind of a thing, as I mentioned before. Fatal incident, even if it has happened about a month back, board meeting is taking place, everything is now sort of being taken care of. Till the time that recurrence happens, it actually dies down kind of a natural death. So the focus has to be alive. It cannot go down. So the first step is reporting of incidents and encouraging to do so. That is the one. Facilitate transparency in reporting of incidents. And I did that in Tata Group because there was also silos there. And when I wanted the incidents to be shared across Tata Group, in Tata Steel incident to be, one of the team members should be from Tata Motors, Tata Housing, somebody should be there from Tata Power. All those kind of things helped in the company to open up. If you don't open up in silo, and if you be in silos and all that, we are not going to improve in safety. And that's one of the things that I find a big difference in countries abroad and in India. When the BP incident happened, when 15 people died and 100 were injured, their investigation report was in open domain for anybody in the world to see for months together. Here, we don't even share the incident, forget on the other side of the same company, but within the different departments as well at times. That's an issue. So transparency in safety is a very, very important factor. Share. Nobody is going to prosecute. Factory inspector has already come and gone, and he's not interested when it becomes old. You can always share when it becomes a little old. I'm not saying sharing immediately after the incident happens, but it's very important. Transparency in reporting of incidents, because otherwise the sharing will not happen, learning will not happen. So try to find out, learn from incidents of the other organizations in the similar industry and all that, and describe accidents and safety bulletins and all, so that the learning takes place. So again, improve the corporate memory. After 10 years and all, everything changes. I was in Johnson & Johnson way back from 1989 to 98, and I visited about 16 years after that. There's just about 4 or 5 people who were there before. Everything has changed. The look of the plant has changed, the people have changed, and everything has changed. So people change, looks change, priorities change, everything changes. But if you don't want a fatality to happen again, we have to keep this alive. So therefore, assure physical and mental health of workforce on the workday. Safety timeout, which is an important factor. Safety timeout is nothing but to take out the time, stop your operations across the sites. If you have 80 sites, stop the operations. And Hindustan Unilever did that. I remember it about 10, 12 years ago. They stopped operations across all their sites, about 80 of them. And also we did that in Castrol when this incident in Texas happened. And what does the head of the department, the section do? They actually talk about this incident. They say that this is the immediate cause that has happened. We don't know the root cause by now. And we need to look at our own risk profile, that is this particular organization or this particular operations that we have in our operations, and take control measures. So that's the safety timeout, which is again a very good messaging that is done by senior leaders, which is very important. Rigor in following up of restriction, recommendations and all that, and never remove equipment that was installed. Devise better retrieval system so that if you want to get into investigation report. When I was doing an audit, 5-star audit again in one of the tire companies, on day one when I was asking about a fatality report, they kept saying, sir, it's inke paas hai, he has it, and all that. Finally, on the third day, it came from the plant head. So this is the fatality investigation report. So again, there's a transparency issue that I was talking about. So if you are not transparent, and you are not even transparent with the auditor who's supposed to be, hold the things in confidential and all that. I'm not even naming the tire company here, for example. So therefore, it becomes an issue. If you're so closed, you're so siloed, safety is not going to improve. You've got to open the doors, and that's what it is required. Pool of trained personnel doing refresher training from time to time, because if you don't have incidents, you'll tend to forget the techniques of incident investigation. Follow up on the accident recommendations, address similar processes elsewhere and all that, and improve the risk perception by training to the workforce. And work towards continuity and retention of contractors' workforce. So the contractors, you need to have dialogue with the contractors to say that you got to, just like our organization, we don't have more than 20% attrition rate. Why in your organization people come and go every second month and all that? You need to keep your people who have been trained. Don't get into a legal hassle by continuity of this thing and all that. You can give breaks or whatever it is. But if you retain your workforce, it's going to benefit you and benefit us. So that's a language that we don't seem to be talking about. So that's the retention fact of the contractor workforce is very important because they're already trained, they already understand. So the chances of serious incidents actually on recurrence and all that will not happen. So finally, I would like to say that, in order to prevent the recurrence of incidents, first of all, you have to report the incident, you've got to investigate, you've got to correct it, learn from it, share it, and then you will be able to prevent the recurrence of incident. Otherwise, if they will keep recurring again and again, management will again wake up, what is happening? You're having this same incident again and again because we have not looked into all those factors that I covered actually in my presentation. If you do that, we'll give a high level of confidence to prevent the recurrence of incidents. So therefore, I say that the measure of success of rigorous of incident investigation is that there should never ever be a repeat for the same or similar causes elsewhere in organization wide. Never ever be a similar or same causes. So if there is a fall from height, it should never be happening again. If there is a confined space entry incident because of somebody collapsing and all inside, it should never ever happen again. Not even after 10 years. And as Obi Krishna mentioned, is a very valid point. That's an excellent organization that it learns from its incidents and all that. And that's where the organization actually is live. It's live to the situation of serious incidents. It is very critical to the business operations and all that. And we need to handle it with, I would say, a mix of iron hand and kid gloves. That's what we need to do. So with that, I sort of end my presentation here. The session comes to an end, and I open to any questions right now. Thank you very much for patient listening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful talk. Now, there are some queries raised in the chat box. I will address them one by one. So, sir, the first question is, how does safety training simulators and safety drills plays role in preventing and reoccurrence of accidents?
Simulator, I'm not sure what the simulator that what you're talking about. There's a simulator, for example, in driving. You can do defensive driving training through a simulator. So that's a good thing because it's a different way of training, and you're actually, it helps in defensive driving technique to be imbibed in your mind. But if you talk about the mock drills, how do they happen? How do they? They are actually many times routine, mundane, and it doesn't actually give that kind of an effect that should be giving. Why? Because we have seen that people getting into the bathrooms when the mock drill happens at times. People not leaving their seat. They say there's another one drill now. Every time we keep doing this drill and all that, they don't actually walk out fast. They shouldn't be running, but they should walk out fast. They don't do that. And also then there is probably that there's a report that is made, and again those repeat points come. This alarm didn't sound, this didn't happen, and all that, which came in the last report also. So the recurrence of anything is actually an issue or a reflection of effectiveness. So your mock drills have not been effective. That's why the repeat points are coming out again. So what are you gaining out of it? You're just doing a tick box exercise by mock drills. So mock drills are useful only from the point of view that people take it seriously. There is a communication to that effect, and there are different set of points that come out in the observation sheet after the mock drill that is done. Then it is effective. I hope I
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, so our next question is, how newer technologies like IoT, Industry 4.0, machine learning, and virtual reality will help in stopping incident reoccurrence?
They are definitely very good tools, and they are, and I understand even in Tata Steel, those I'm talking about now 4-5 years back, we were talking about, fatigue factor, how can be sort of, looked at and all that. So those things definitely help. And as far as artificial intelligence and all that, definitely it helps, and also robotics. Now, robotics and all that also has, it is an automation, and it is supposed to be doing the job faster, but it has its own risk which you need to understand. And just about 3-4 years back, we understood that a lady was killed because of robotics. How come that was sort of malfunctioned or whatever it is? So you need to understand the risks of the new technology as well. So that we are not only based on technology that is going to give us benefit. Technologies fail at times, and therefore we need to have standby and different arrangements in terms of supplementing the technology.
Thank you, sir. So I'm taking the next question. Does safety culture ensures incident prevention?
The safety culture will not guarantee incident prevention, but it will again give a confidence of accident prevention, because safe, good positive safety culture drives the safety performance in an organization. So, the safety culture drives the behavior drives the performance, and all that. So, safety culture, if it's a positive safety culture, the likes of Shell and all that, that has never had a very major disaster for many years now, it's a very positive, matured culture over decades. So, that safety culture is a reflection of people will do what is in the spirit of doing, rather than when somebody is watching and doing, somebody is looking at, and therefore you start doing in a safe manner and all that, and not looking at safety as a burden. And all those, there are various models now when the safety culture is at various stages. When safety is not looked at burden, safety is looked at as value in the organization. Obviously, then you're doing everything else to in order to prevent that incident from happening, and definitely from incident from reoccurring. So it's a very important factor, of course, but it builds over a period of time. It builds sometimes not only in years, but in decades.
Thank you, sir. Last question, today's last question I am taking. What are the major tools to improve and enhance safety culture?
Well, there are a plethora of tools to enhance safety culture, and it starts from the leadership itself. There is, and I can sort of name, some of them. One is the behavioral safety part of it, when we sort of converse with the people and we call it safety observation and all that. That again becomes a very mundane procedure, which for a large organization it's into lakhs and all that come out in terms of safety observation. Very difficult to separate out actually what are the main issues and all that. But then safety conversation with the people, a very friendly conversation is one of the factors that helps. The presence of the safety leaders at the site from time to time and asking questions around concerns around safety is another one. The consequence management, which is very, very just and fair culture approach, is there in that, is also a factor for for the company to reflect a positive safety culture. That it's not only one of the culture that is, and I would place it in the middle of the safety culture, that somebody people getting fired every now and then for safety violation. Does that work? In my opinion, it doesn't work at all. You fire person A today, after 2 months you fire person B because he's done the same wrong thing and all. After third way, after 6 months you fire person 3. So what are you getting? You're not getting the right things. That you're not driving a culture. You're driving a culture of fear. That if you do this, you're out from the company. Safety doesn't get driven by fear. It gets driven by embracing the good things about safety, and that kind of a knowledge, that kind of that kind of an environment has to be set by the organization, wherein by safety is taken as something that is very valuable to us, rather than it is being thrust upon us. It is a commitment rather than it is a compliance. This commitment will come from within, and compliance will come, it is external. Somebody is asking you to do it, and you're doing it. Otherwise, your mind and heart is not into it. So these are some of the factors which actually drive safety culture: the leadership element, the workforce engagement, the behavioral safety process, that is a very important part of it, and also the consequence management, which is just and fair. We need to fire people, but far and few between. And when we need to do that, if actually he is the person is actually at fault. If the organization is not trained a person, and we say this person is out because he's careless and he's not sort of followed the rules, but we done an investigation to see whether the person was actually trained. If he's not trained, then the management is at fault. But why are we making a victim of the person who is actually not trained and firing him? And that's what happens in the organization. So we've got to be very careful as to this is on the consequence management as to how do we do that. And that happens, that also is applicable to the contractors. When we find the drop of a hat, deduct 1 lakh from this contractor because he is very violating and all that, it doesn't matter to him at all. Because that 1 lakh will log again, because of the continuity of contract, it will be regained again in one way or the other. How does it help? So therefore, the culture has to be created in a manner which is the safety buying in should come, and there are various tools and techniques which can be sort of used for safety to become ingrained as a value in the organization.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, once again for your insightful and wonderful talk. Now, I would like to request Professor Krishna to formally provide the vote of thanks to our expert speaker. Over to you, sir.
Piyush, why are you hiding your face?
Sir, there is a network issue, so sir.
Okay. Good, Piyush. You
Yes,
yourself
thank you.
is an expert in safety. See, I'm very happy. Mr. Suresh has brought many practical issues and explained how, by addressing all those things, how can you stop recurrence. But before I really proposing my views and vote of thanks, I want Sween unmute all the candidates. Unmute everybody. Anybody want to ask direct question to?
Participants are unmuted.
Yeah. Any participant who is there want to ask direct question to the speaker? I'll allow one or two questions if they are there, because this is a very popular topic.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
Sir, my name is Sunil Singh. I'm working in ITD Cementitian India Limited, construction company. Previously is a Trafalgar House. So, sir, how audit and prevent the accidents in the project sites, tunneling project sites, especially I'm asking the tunneling project sites, their AIR or incident rate is very high because it's a underground activities and there are a geological factor. Geology is not good, so that is AIR is very high. So how to reduce that thing, sir?
I think the most positive tool that we have, and we don't use it very effectively, is risk assessment. You must understand what can go wrong, whether it is tunneling or it is mining or it is power plant or it is hydro plant or power plant, where different kind of risks are there. Everything boils down to risk assessment. Understand the risk of that particular job, understand what can go wrong, make it practical, and do a dynamic risk assessment. What we tend to do is risk assessment, first of all, is a paper exercise. Secondly, we don't even review it. We review it once in a year, once in 6 months, and all that. For an operation like tunneling and project site, construction site, and all that, risk assessment must be reviewed on a weekly basis, certainly on a daily basis. If that is done, and then the chances, because you will understand what can go wrong, the collapse can happen, and this can happen, and then collision can happen, whatever it is. All those will be realized, and you will be having the control measures in place, not theoretical on paper, but practically you will be able to mitigate those risks. So that is, I think, that is the tool that we should use effectively, which you are not using, and doesn't apply to specifically to an industry. By the way, it applies to everything. It applies to mines, manufacturing industry, oil and gas, tunneling operations for
Sween, please unmute everybody. Please unmute.
And the other thing I touched upon, and I would like to again say, if your toolbox talk, again, you must understand at that point in time what is the work going on, so that work is a constant work. I can understand, but you can sort of devise a method wherein you actually divide the work in phases and all that. Now this is a set of work. These are the risks, and these are the control measures that we have taken. We have looked at our people. We have looked at the physical and the mental condition of people who are working. We looked at the fatigue factors, stress factors, and all that. We looked at the equipment, and we looked at everything. Then the chance of incidents actually will become very less, right?
Thank you, Suresh. So when you say risk assessment,
thank you, very useful your talk, sir, and we have implemented at our project site, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, O.B. Krishna, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Suresh. You have been telling risk assessment at length. probably that eye of looking at the risk is a great important. So IIT Kharagpur propagates how you look at how you really find out the risk. So we have our own models like microhazard mapping and management. Many tools we have developed, and nowadays many organizations come to us that we want to use the analytics. Every field people are using analytics and taking the benefit. Why not we use in the safety? Many reputed organizations keep coming to us.
Yeah.
When we go into that, we understand the data which so-called good organizations are collecting is not really suitable for putting into analytics. So that's one of the area where the Center of Excellence in Safety Engineering and Analytics is propagating. How safety data, what is really safety data and how it should be collected. This is not understood by the world. Even working in Tata Steel for many years, I thought I used to have very good data with us. But finally, when we started looking at the analytics point of view, then the things are different. Anyhow, good. You've given a lot of inputs to the people on safety culture. We apply HAZOP and safety culture.
Yeah.
If the organizations are saying that we have a safety culture, so to understand how effective it is, we use HAZOP. So HAZOP for all disciplines is one of the things which IIT Kharagpur has come up, which is being used in many organizations now. Good, Suresh. Your talk has helped a lot. So you could be a good one of our resource for CoE. We can keep talking to each other. So people are talking about artificial intelligence. Some people are talking about Industry 4.0. People are talking about virtual reality. All these things are helping in safety in different means.
Yes.
People now challenge Henry's triangle. So we don't believe Henry's triangle at all. We believe mostly some of the triangles are there. Mayank triangle is there, which talks in a different way. So different concepts are coming. Finally, we have to save the lives of the people.
Exactly. That's the bottom line.
Save the property. If you and environment. If you do all these things, anything which we do is better. So thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you the moderators, Sreen, Piyush, and Savik, and all the participants who are there. There's some 80 participants I could see.
So thank you very much, Krishna. I mean, thank you for your kind words and also sharing your own experience and the Center of Excellence. In safety analytics. Your organization is doing a human job, the sort of institute, and I personally would like to thank you for again giving me this opportunity and also giving your views as well right in the beginning and in the end also. It was a pleasure interacting with you all, and thanks the organizers as well. It was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you very much.
So thank you all. The session is closed. We'll meet again next week at the same time. This time with the academician will be speaking on a different topic. Thank you. Good night and good day to all of you.